In this tutorial today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to sharpen your images or how to sharpen portraits in Photoshop. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys three methods. One is going to be the destructive method, and the other two are going to be the non-destructive methods. What's up, everyone? Photographer Ronix from One Photographer. In this tutorial today, yeah, you guessed it right. It's about how to sharpen your images or how to sharpen your portraits in Photoshop. So we're going first of all learn about the first method, that is going to be the destructive method. By destructive, I mean whenever you apply the settings when you're trying to do your sharpening, these settings cannot be undone unless you're going to go back from the very beginning of your sharpening process. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to be doing the sharpening using the sharpen tool in Photoshop. So first of all, we want to start by duplicating a background layer by clicking Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. So we are going to rename this layer sharpen for purposes of being uniform. So get your sharpen tool. This is the sharpen tool. Make sure the strength is around between 30 and 40%. Sample all layers is marked or checked, and protect detail is also marked and checked. So what sharpening does basically, we want to enhance the areas that have details more for the images. We don't want to emphasize these blurry areas or the background areas that have a blurry kind of feel and they have less of the details. So we want to enhance those that have details in this way of sharpening. So let me first of all zoom in to around 50%, and we try to do the sharpening by painting over those specific areas we want to sharpen. So let's start by increasing the sharpen tool by using the right bracket on the keyboard and just painting over the eyes of our model. So we just want to enhance specific areas for this image. So let's first see the before and after for that. So that's the image before, after. You can see we have just sharpened the model's eyes. So you can as well paint the whole overall image. Yeah, you can even paint over the skin to add sharpening to the skin like that. So basically we are just sharpening the image using the sharpen tool in Photoshop. So you can see what it is doing. So that's the before after. So I think this is kind of overdone, but when you put it to a distance, you can see the before and after. I hope you guys can see the sharpening effect. For example, if I paint over the model's dress, you are going to see the sharpening effect that is going to be applied. So you can see a before and after on the dress too. So if at all I overdo it right there, you can see the sharpening effect. That's the before after. But you can't undo or delete the sharpening effect if at all you have applied it wrongly on a given area. So this makes this type of method a destructive method. So you can continue painting over the areas you want to sharpen, because we don't want the sharpening to be on the overall image including the background. So we just have to selectively paint over the specific areas we would like to sharpen. So this is the first method, that is using the sharpening tool in Photoshop. So I'm going to share with you guys the second method, and the second method we are going to be using the high pass filter to do the sharpening onto the image. Like we did for the first image, we need first of all duplicate the background layer by clicking Ctrl J or Command J on the keyboard. Then we are going to make sure this layer is selected, right click, and first of all convert it into a smart object. So when you do convert a layer in a smart object, it enables us first of all to go back to the image and reset or play around with the settings we may have applied to the image. It gives us more control over the effects we may have applied onto the image. So This is a non-destructive way of sharpening, and I would definitely recommend it. So after converting the layer 1 into a smart object, we are going first of all duplicate layer 1 by clicking Ctrl or Command J once, and we are going to name the middle layer blur, and the top layer we're going to name it high pass, like that. So after doing that, we are going to deactivate or switch off the high pass layer and select the blur layer. Then we are going to come to filter, then come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So we are going to use a radius of around 2 for this effect. We can as well come back and change these settings because this is uh, a smart object. So click OK, and now activate the high pass layer and click on it. Then come to filter, then come to other, and come to high pass. So when you click on high pass, we are going to be using a radius of 2 for this image because we don't want to over sharpen the image. So we're going to be using a radius of 2. So you have to type in a radius until this radius has to depend on the details you can see in the image, and it shouldn't be overdone depending on how you want to sharpen your image. So click OK, then come to the blending mode and click on normal and look for linear light, like that. So we have sharpened the image, but now we want the effect to be applied on only specific areas of the portrait. So in order to do that, click Ctrl or Command and click on both layers, the high pass and the blur layer, and click Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard, or you can just drag and drop them onto this folder like icon, put them in a group. So you're going to name that group sharpening for purposes of being uniform. So we want to create a mask so that we just paint over and reveal the sharpening on specific areas of the image. So you're going to hold down the alternate button on the keyboard. So when holding it down, click on this layer mask icon or this kind of camera like icon and click on it. So we have hidden the sharpening, so we want to paint or reveal back the sharpening on the image or the areas we want the sharpening to be applied onto. And in order to do that, get your brush tool. This is the normal brush. So we are going to go with an opacity of 100% and the flow 100%. You're like that. So you're going to make sure it is the hardness is around 16%, and make sure white is on the foreground because white reveals and black hides. That's why the black mask hid the effect of the sharpening on the image. So make sure white is on top or on the foreground. And if at all you don't have these two colors, it is simple. Just click on these two boxes right here. You get the black and white back. And to get white on top, just click on this arrow, or just click X on the keyboard to get white on top. So this is a white brush. We are going to paint on a black mask to reveal the sharpening effect onto this image. So we are going to zoom in because we want to see the sharpening effect we are going to be applying. So you're just going to start painting over those specific areas we would like to sharpen on the image. So you can see, and for such portraits, make sure you don't sharpen the hair. Yeah, just don't sharpen the hair because most of the times the detail or the skin details or sharpening the facial structures is what really matters for such kind of portraits or images. So let's say before after. Let me zoom in a little bit. So that's the before after. So if at all you feel you're okay with this kind of the sharpness of the image, you can as well leave it the way it is, or if at all you feel it is too much, just come to the opacity and reduce or turn down the opacity And if at all you feel the sharpening is not enough for the image, just drop down and click on the high pass filter. So when you double click right here, you get back this radius. That is the advantage of having a smart object. So just come and increase. So when you increase the radius, you will see the image is really getting more sharp or sharper. So depending on what you're trying to go in for, but make sure you don't go overboard with this kind of sharpening. So if at all you feel you're comfortable with it, just click OK, and now you can close this. So let's say before and after for the sharpening of the face we have just done. So let's say before, after, before, after, before, after. So we have just done the second non-destructive way of sharpening, and I would definitely recommend this kind of sharpening because it is the best and it enables us to have that freedom of having to control the settings or the effects we have applied onto the image using the smart object option. So we're going to delete this, and now we're going to look at the very second method of sharpening images in Photoshop. And like I said, the third method is using the camera raw filter in Photoshop. So as usual, we want first of all duplicate the background layer by clicking Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. So we're going to again convert it into a smart object because we want to have control over the effects we are going to apply after we have sharpened the image in camera raw. We can always go back and check on them or tweak them a little bit or change them to whatever works best for us. So click on convert to a smart object, then come right here to filter, come to camera raw filter. So when you click on camera raw filter, and for this method you should have the camera raw filter plugin in your Photoshop, because if at all you don't have it, you won't be able to use this kind of sharpening for your images or your portraits in Photoshop. So I hope you guys have learned the very first two methods. So this is the third method we are going to be used. So under camera raw, we have the detail panel. So under detail, that is why you're going to have this sharpening option. So when you're sharpening, let's kind of zoom in. I'm going to get the hand tool and move onto the face. So this is why you add the amount of sharpening you really want to add onto the image. But you can as well leave the detail the way it is. And now the radius really matters because the sharpening, most of the times when we are doing sharpening, it kind of adds some kind of halos onto the edges of the image you want to sharpen, and it is most common under people who do wildlife photography and landscapes. So come under the radius, and if at all you feel it is really adding those kind of halos or some kind of banding onto the images you want to sharpen, make sure you reduce on the radius, because when you increase the radius, it is going to increase on the halos onto that particular area. So we're going to go with the radius of 1. Then remember, we want the sharpness to affect specific areas of the image. So, and the trick in order to do that, in order to target those specific areas you would like to sharpen, come under right here under masking, hold down the alternate button or the alternate button, hold it down and drag to the right. So make sure you slide it until you're seeing the areas you want the sharpness to be applied onto. So for this case, you're going to go with around 78. So after doing that, come to right here to the basic panel and add a little bit of clarity, because clarity sometimes adds that a little bit of sharpening onto the image. So let's see the before and after so far. So we're going to zoom in so that we can check on the before and after for this image. So you can see this is the image before and the after. We have added that kind of subtle sharpening to this image. You can see this is the before and after. You can see the after really looks sharper than the before. You can see right here it is kind of blurry right here. So if at all you feel you're getting some kind of noise, if at all you have some kind of noise, you can as well come back and under the detail, and this is under the sharpening, sorry, right here, and reduce on the details in those particular areas you're trying to get the noise after sharpening your images in Camera Raw. So after you have done that, click OK, and it is going to apply the sharpening onto the image. So that is the image before, after, before, after. Let me zoom in a little bit so that you can see the sharpening we have applied. So that's the before, after, before, after. You can see right here on the models here that the image has now become sharp. So if at all you want to adjust or change the sharpening settings on to your image, just double click on the camera raw filter, and it is going to open the camera raw filter once again, and you can come back and change or adjust those settings on to the image. So click OK, and yeah, that will be all for sharpening your images. So this has been a tutorial about how to sharpen your photos or how to sharpen your images. In first of all, we learned about the destructive way, that was using the sharpening tool, and under that we are not getting control over having to change the effects after applying them onto the image. And secondly, we learned about sharpening using the hypers filter and what to create a smart object, and the smart object enables us to change or adjust the filters after we have applied them onto the image. So the third method was using the camera raw, and this has been a tutorial about all those. And if at all you learned something from this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe. I know most of you tend to watch and not subscribe, but don't forget to subscribe this channel, and don't forget to like this video, and don't forget to comment in the comment section if at all you want to give me feedback about this specific video about how to sharpen your images in Photoshop. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to keep creating.